Greetings everyone. You are watching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel, and today making our way toward hopefully a debut video of this machine. Not right now, but we're getting there. Step by step, I wanted to show you how I will be reinstalling the motor for the Pfaff Model 30 and its hand wheel and its motor belt. Now the motor belt, I think I mentioned in another video earlier about this belt. When I took it off, I swear, you know what, 95% of the time, maybe 90% of the time, when I get an old belt, it either is crumbly or it has cracks in it, and I just replace it. This is true whether it's a lugged belt, you know, the sort of orange urethane belts. The better versions of those have some fibers in them. And then you have the old school rubber belts. Now these belts are rubber, but they also have fibers in them. They can be very strong, last a really long time, but of course they're not inert materials and they do eventually dry rot. Very rarely do I get a motor belt that even when I inspect it, I can't see any cracks or crazing. The belt's in good shape. It may not be the very first belt that the machine had, but it was replaced at some point in its life when, you know, replacement belts were mostly still rubber. You can get black V-shaped rubber belts for Singer featherweights, and there may be some other machines you can get them for. But most of what you're going to find online are the lugged belts. Either one is fine. But in this case, you are watching something you almost never see on this channel or probably anywhere else. I'm going to reuse the original belt because it's in fantastic shape. And that place, I think I talked about it, the place in the belt where the belt is joined when they manufacture it, I think it's right there. I mean, it's not even loose. Look at that. I mean, it's ready to go, so why not? No point in throwing away a belt if it still is functional. If I start to see those cracks, that the signs that it is, you know, going to start shedding, then I just replace it. Belts are not expensive. So what are we going to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our motor reinstalled. Now, this motor, which I talked a little bit about when I was, you know, inspecting the machine, the motor itself is mounted the way many vintage sewing machine motors are mounted, which is to say they are mounted on the right side of the machine. There's usually a bolt to hold a bracket, for you. And that bolt, I'm pretty sure that when I put the bolt back in that spot, just to make sure it was a good place to store it until I need it again, you know, don't have to worry about finding it if I should misplace it. I really shouldn't misplace things, but you never know, so why not? It's one less thing you have to keep up with because there's only one place it normally goes. All right, so if you have not done so, if you've got your old bolt, the original bolt, which is fine, I think I went ahead and added a drop or two of sewing oil. So you can just typically, you can put it, if again, this is something that you don't normally oil, but it left the factory and probably hasn't been done since. Just take a drop of sewing oil, put it right there on the end, and then as you screw in the bolt, it'll put that oil and spread it over the threads. You just need that nice thin film and you should be good to go for a long time. Okay, so what am I doing here? The first thing you want to do is, before we even try to get this motor there, let's use an ounce of prevention here. What do I mean by that? The paint finish on this machine is largely gorgeous. I mean, just beautiful. And the last thing I or you want to do is to damage it in the process of trying to, you know, overhaul it. So I'm taking, this is a portion of an old flannel pillowcase, and you know, I'm just going to roll it up, make sure it's good and thick, and just put it here. And why I'm doing this, I'm simply doing it. I shouldn't drop the motor. I've done this enough, but just in case, I don't want to scratch that paint. So, you know, the padding is here just as a protector, okay, and oh, by the way, your your bracket, if you look on the other side, you will often see it has a groove in it, right? So, and you'll see that there's an indentation, or actually something that projects out here, right here in the center. So you want to line it up that way, because that's what it will slide on when you want to adjust the bracket. And right now I'm just wanting to get the bolt in. I'm just doing it by hand. If you need to, you can certainly use a screwdriver, but you don't really need to get it fully tightened, because we need to, I'm just getting it mounted to the machine. And let me show this to you just to make sure that what I was describing to you about this bracket will make sense. So if you look right here, if you see the bracket, you see, where's my little pointing tool? I need something really small. All right, we'll use the oiler here. You see how this piece of steel that is where we've mounted the bracket, notice it comes out and then it drops down in sort of this little T shape. Your bracket wants to snug and fit that, right? Like a male-female fitting. And again, don't worry about the actual level of the bolt or the bracket, because we're going to come back to that. We're going to need to, when it's time to adjust our belt tension. Okay, so we're not ready to play with our belt yet, because I had removed the pulley. I had removed the pulley off of the shaft of the motor because I wanted to inspect it. I don't do this all the time, but I wanted to kind of get a feel for it and make sure that there was no corrosion there, and there wasn't, right? I think I cleaned off some filth, and actually now that I'm remembering this, I took this off primarily because I could see some kind of filth behind it, and in fact there was old residue from a prior belt. It wasn't off the current belt, and I just wanted to make sure that I could get to that residue, get it off of there, and so removing this pulley was very useful. It made it much more easy. Now, I am not putting this shaft, the motor shaft, is actually, it should be clean. I should not have any oil on it. I cleaned it off with alcohol to clean off any residue. And the reason I did not oil it is because I want to make sure that my pulley, it's not a super tight fitting. It slides right on easily. And the reason for this is that I need to get the pulley back in alignment with where it was originally. So I'm going to turn this around for you. You'll get a better picture of it this way than trying to see it from the other side there. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to look. You don't want the pulley all the way up against the motor, because you're gonna have it scraping. But this particular pulley, and I'm pretty sure I had all of you look at this before I first took it off, is to say, okay, where was the pulley? The pulley was actually right there. Maybe, I don't know, not even 1/8. I think it was more like a 1/16 of an inch separating the pulley from the side of the motor. You just want that gap. You want that space there. Now, I'm going to snug and torque down this little set screw. And I'm going to need my little itty bitty, my smallest screwdriver bit, I believe. And you're going to want a small screwdriver for this. If you have for example, this is a Singer, but it doesn't matter. This is a Singer bobbin case screwdriver. That's why they included it. And I'm just turning this just to get this so that the pulley here should not wiggle. It really shouldn't move. I just wanted to make sure I've got this where I want it. And I'm snugging this set screw there. It was just easier for me to use that little screwdriver. And then I'm going to come back and just double check. I'm going to turn, see if it let me turn a little bit more, and then I stopped. So I snugged it just a little bit more than I would something like this, right? This is just here to hold that plate up against the machine. It's not really under stress, but the pulley, of course, will be under some pressure because it's going to have the motor belt attached to it. Okay, so one last thing to mention, if you have not done this, you will want to take, I dipped my cotton swab in, I think I did this in one of the other videos, and I was just cleaning the groove of the pulley. Remember, that groove is where your belt's going to live, and your belt needs to have plenty of friction. You don't want any, there really shouldn't be any oil here, but you never know, dust, oil, grease, whatever. You want to make sure that that pulley space is nice and clean so that it's ready to accept the belt, and they're going to work together without slipping and sliding. Okay, what do we have left to do here? Well, we have another pulley, don't we? Yes, and that of course is our hand wheel. Now the hand wheel, and many of us call this a hand wheel, it is actually of course a pulley. The only hand wheels that do not have a groove in them would be the hand wheels on Singer direct drive models only. By that I mean the Singer 201 and the Singer 15-91. Now, not all 201s have this feature, but the ones that have what today we call them potted motors, there's no belt, those don't have a pulley. They don't have a pulley groove. They have a hand wheel, but they don't have a pulley groove because there's no belt. Okay, so let's get our sewing machine oil out. I'm going to put a little oil here, a little bit on the threads there, and I am simply going to just push the wheel right on there. No big deal. Now, sort of spread the oil around there, and that should be fine. Now, what I find is typically simplest to do is when I'm trying to get the belt on, and by the way, I think I had touched this belt on the inner part when I had sewing machine oil on my fingers. It can happen. You may not even notice it. I took it to the sink a couple of days ago, and I washed it with dishwashing liquid, and I rinsed it off, let it dry. It's good to go. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and take my motor belt, and I'm going to go ahead and seat it into that groove. Okay, so the groove that I was showing you, right? So there's your groove in the hand wheel, right? I'm going to let the belt, that's where it's going to live. That's where it needs to live. And I'm going to go ahead and seat it there. And then holding this, I'm going to put the hand wheel back on. Okay, and now I've got my belt just sort of hanging here. And that's, for the moment, it's okay. Because you might say, well, hey, it won't reach this motor pulley. That's all right. We're not done yet. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and get my hand wheel stable. And to do that, I've got to put my washer back on, this big heavy washer. Make sure that when you put the washer on, these two little teeth, the two little prongs there, you want to make sure that they're angling up. They have a very slight angle. It'll probably show better if I show it this way. On the back side, you notice how they kind of slope downward, okay? Or inward, I should say. And you want to make sure that that they're actually sloping outward for your, in other words, you want your clutch knob release to work properly. Now, these washers will be very loose, and sometimes it might or might not. You can try it. You can put a drop or two of sewing machine oil on the back of the washer and see if that, sometimes that'll help it kind of sort of stick and hang on, maybe, or maybe not. As soon as I say that, it'll fall on the floor. Okay, and then I'm going to take the clutch knob, that clutch knob with the lovely texture that Pfaff was known for. And I'm going to put a little bit of, just one drop, literally one drop there to make sure my set screw for the knob is fine. And we want to put a drop or two right on the threads there. And I've already put oil on the thread here, so we should really be set. Now, remember, I mentioned this in other videos before. Let's let you guys see this from this angle. When you are putting your clutch knob on, pay close attention to what's going on with your washer. Your washer should sit there and behave, but they don't always. Sometimes the washer will try to dislodge, and it will actually sort of come off of its seat and sort of cling to the, it'll basically get loose. And if that happens, it won't work. And you may be wondering, hey, what's going on with this thing? It's not broken, it's just not seated. It's really hard to break a vintage machine. It can be done, but it's not easy. Usually it's user error, or in my case, restorer's error. Because we often learn by trial and error, don't we? That's some of the most useful lessons we get. We have to try things and figure out what works. Okay, so I'm just going to snug that down. Now, okay, what's next? Well, back to the matter at hand. Now I'm going to leave my little cloth here, my little padding that I've got, which is this old pillowcase. Technically, I've done a lot of these and I don't always do this, but if you're new to this, this can help you. You'll be very unhappy if you scratch your own machine. That will not be a fun time. And I'm going to get my larger screwdriver tip. That's too thick, it won't fit. And I am going to hold my motor. This motor is pretty darn heavy. These motors are heavy. So I'm going to loosen the bolt. I'm not taking the bolt out, just loosening it. Now you can see that the bracket, if I can loosen it enough, the bracket now will let me slide it up and down. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slide it up so that I can get my belt onto the motor, the little motor pulley there. Okay, now that it's on there, okay, before you go any further, you're going to want to make sure that your belt did not come off out of the groove of your hand wheel, which is, again, another pulley. And if it does, you just put it back on. Because if it does, and you get this set, and you think, okay, I got this fixed, and oh no, what now? Things have a way of wanting to move around on their own. Okay, now this, the tensioning of this belt, it basically is the same as it's going to be for most machines with this kind of motor and belt setup. It's not that different. So what I'm going to do is, this is just hanging. I haven't really, snugged the bolt down. I'm pushing in. I have to decide, how much I'm going to let the bracket slip down a little bit. Now, if I go too far down, I'm going to have tension that's too taut. Remember, I've mentioned to you all, having a motor belt that's too tight is not good. If it's too loose, it'll slip and you won't get any traction. So you want a happy medium. So what am I doing? This is truly a spitball test. Whoops, there we go. I've just got my bracket to come down a little bit more. And I'm pushing in, slide a little bit more. Now we're getting more tension. Now, what does that do? When I push onto the belt, and you've seen me do this in other videos, take my finger or my thumb and I push in. And I want to be able to move that belt about 1/4 of an inch inward until it really pushes back and says, that's it. And I'm going to snug the bolt. I haven't totally tightened it yet, because when this happens, when you tighten the bolt, it pushes the bracket more flush than you can do by hand, and it may actually raise the tension. So now, I don't know, is that too tight? What you want to do is you want to basically allow your motor to have a belt that has as little tension as is needed in order to get traction, okay? And if you say, well, what happens if I make it too loose when I'm adjusting it? Whoops, you see, I don't know if you saw the bracket just slipped on me there. If it gets too loose, you'll know because the belt will slip. And if it slips, it's not a problem. You simply come back to the bolt and you adjust it again. So I just allow just a bit more slack. I'm going to start here, okay? And if it's too tight, you may hear your motor groan and complain a lot. It'll often work, but it can shorten the life of the motor. So now I'm going to take out my little whatever's left of that old pillowcase, and that is where. And don't forget, when you torque down the bolt on your bracket, again, I'm turning it just a little bit more snug than most of the bolts I tighten because it's under force. But again, you should not be tightening this thing to the point where you break the bolt. It's not a lug nut on a car's wheel or anything. All right, so there we go. We have our motor and belt reinstalled. We have a new light bulb. We have a machine that has been cleaned and lubricated and has had various parts unstuck. Anything that was stuck is now unstuck. What are we missing? Did we forget something? Yes, we sure did. We forgot to put in our hook. So let's lower our cam here and I'll let you all see how I'm going to install the hook. Sometimes I've shown this from underneath, but let's do it here from this angle, because sometimes, you know, you might have a situation where you need to install your hook for some reason. Maybe you take out the bobbin case and for whatever reason the hook wants to come out. Sometimes it will. All right, so again, as I mentioned in the past, we're going to use just a little bit of lubrication. I have decided that I prefer to actually oil the hook itself than trying to squirt oil down there in the race. Of course, the race, give you a nice close-up there. The race is not that. Let's see here. Here we go. Here is the race. The race is what you see down here. It almost looks like a rim, right? Almost looks like the opening of a front-load washing machine. And there's a rim here. And that rim is what our hook is going to be installed up against. So this is what you see when you put the hook in. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put oil, just a few drops, and I mean just a few, like one and one there, okay? And then I'm going to come on the back. This is the part that's going to get it on the back of the race, okay? And that's what I'm doing. Now, this may seem, and it may be a little bit much, so what can we do? We take our cotton swab, and let's just do a little mopping. We want the oil to wet these areas, but we don't want it drowning in oil, right? It's like putting too much dressing on a salad. We're not trying to submerge this in oil. We're basically trying to get it just with oil where it's going to be touching metal. And the reason, some of you will know this, the reason we want to be extra careful, I'm going to get my big fat fingers in here to get this put into place. Let's just do it like this. How about that? Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to take the hook and I'm going to place it. Oops, I just gave myself a little bit more room there. And remember, when I put the wing nut back on, I didn't fully tighten it because I knew I was coming back with a hook. So you want to put your hook in, and your hook, if you see this piece here, the butterfly here of the shuttle, if I can lower this down, there we go. We're going to put the hook completes that circle. Now sometimes you'll try to put it in there, and it's like, hey, I can't get this thing in here. Because sometimes you have to kind of wiggle it, and maybe the word finagle, if that's a word that you use, you want to do. And this is what it should look like. Notice how the edge of the hook is nice and flush with this portion of the race cover. And if I come behind here, and so what you should see is when you turn, when your shaft and shuttle are turning, you know, your hand wheel's moving, this is an oscillating hook, and that's what your hook should look like. And again, if the race cover on this model, on the Pfaff, it has this nice little wing nut release. If you don't tighten this and you turn, you know, you're trying to sew with your hook is very likely, it's not doing it at the moment, but it'll plop out. It'll just here go clink, and you won't have a hook in place. And it will sometimes take, of course, if your bobbin case is installed, the whole thing will come out. So always remember, no matter what style of race cover you have, I just snug this one back and it should be fine. So without your bobbin case in there, that's what your hook looks like, right? And you have to have a hook if you're going to form a stitch. So that is how the hook is very cautiously and judiciously oiled. We only want the smallest amount of oil needed for it to have low friction or good lubrication as it moves against metal. We don't want to flood that area with oil because oil and lint come together to form a muddy mess. And that, folks, is how you install the hook of a Pfaff Model 30. I have not installed the bobbin case yet because we still have to wind a bobbin. So we'll go through that process of winding a bobbin on the Pfaff 30, and then I'll show how the bobbin case is installed. It's going to be very familiar to you all if you know how to install a Class 15 side loading bobbin case. So thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next installment as we gradually get closer and closer to hopefully getting to debut the amazing and incredible, we hope, Pfaff Model 30, made in England, no less. Thank you all for tuning in.